Deathpixie disclaimer. This video was originally recorded in September 2024. There is swearing and profanity. Sources are listed in the description. This video is not monetized. Any ads you see provide revenue to the hosting site, not the creators. If you made it this far, geez, you have a lot of patience.
Deathpixie dancing on the lip of madness!
Welcome to Shitty PowerPoint Theater. Dignity not included.
All right, who was after this? Canada's first female prime minister, Kim Campbell.
And
Progressive
a
conservative.
really long and healthy tenure she's had.
Yeah, progressive conservative. She actually married and divorced twice, and I believe she is still married to her third husband. So yeah, there you go. That's kind of what you need to know about her. I will note that husband number one is the one that Mulroney also on those tapes implied was a Russian spy, which is a very huge accusation to levy against somebody, because you're basically talking about, treason and stuff like that. Anyway, so I'm not sure if this is a pro or con, but she did actually reorganize the cabinet, and she cut it from 35 to 23 ministers, consolidated different ministries by creating 3 new ministries: Health, Canada Heritage, and Public Security. She also extensively campaigned in the summer, touring the nation and attending barbecues and other events. The number of cabinet committees was reduced from 11 to 5. She was the first prime minister to convene at the First Ministers' Conference for consultation prior to representing Canada at the G7 summit. She actually had a higher approval rating than even Jean Chrétien, which is, wow, that's interesting. And she also consolidated, I mentioned that. She consolidated ministries. Interesting how that came up twice. Whatever. I do want to note something. Bill C-49 around this time was passed, and this is just a bit of context for the time period, which defined how past sexual history can be used in sexual assault cases, which restricted the defense of many men had used that they had honestly thought they had consent, and it actually redefined consent in relation to the sexual assault. So just interesting context of the time. She absolutely did face discrimination for being a woman. It included name-calling, questions of morality based on her 2 divorces, and these giant qualifications questions, despite the fact she had the same experience level as Mulroney. So, interesting. Her popularity actually declined after the writ was dropped.
Significantly.
And there were a couple reasons for that. The small reason was her bluntness. It was an asset, however. When she was asked about doing a complete overhaul of Canada's social policies and their complexity, she's like, I can't do that in 47 days. And it was reduced to her basically saying that an election is no time to discuss important issues, but that's not what she was meaning. She was meaning it's 47 days. I can't talk about all of this in only 47 days. The big one was the PC campaign put together a series of attack ads on the Liberal leader. This was Chrétien. Jean Chrétien had Bell palsy facial paralysis, and the second ad appeared to mock this. And this caused severe backlash. Campbell disavowed it. The ads were ordered off the air. She said
But
that
the
she
damage was already done.
Yeah, she said she wasn't aware of it. Whether she was or she wasn't is neither here nor there, but the damage was done with that ad. Considering comments that Mulroney made, I wouldn't be surprised if this was on purpose, to, take heat off of him. But that turns into a whole conspiracy thing, and that's just my conjecture. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened, but I have nothing to say that it did.
Yeah. Now, for her cutting of ministers and the cutting of cabinet committees, to me that's neither a pro nor a con, and it's up to you on how you feel about the consolidation of government. But one of the things that neoliberalists, especially current day conservatives, will do is look at consolidating government power into having a small force. Why? They believe smaller government and more laissez-faire policies will create the best economic structures. Whether or not they do is a point in of itself. But that is why the reorganizing a cabinet for Kim Campbell doesn't necessarily seem out of the realm, given what neoliberalist conservative policies were like at the time.
It's just something I highlight because I do find that there are periods where stuff balloons and you need to kind of consolidate down. Like, at a certain point, something can be too small to actually have proper oversight. Something can also be too big to have proper oversight. So, it's always good to reevaluate from time to time. The reason why it was in pro was because this reorganization was actually kept.
Yeah.
So, to me, that indicated that there was a need for it outside of, political faction and stuff like that. But you're right. It is neither here nor there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the nail in the coffin was really that one ad. That was the nail in the coffin.
Yeah. Now keep in mind, there have been ads that have been a lot worse.
Oh yes. But that was the true nail in the coffin.
Yeah.
My favorite quote by her is, a comparison between Madonna and me is a comparison between a strapless evening gown and a gownless evening strap. And I just really like the quote. I can analyze it to high heavens and talk about, the issues with it, blah, blah, blah. But on its surface level, it's just such a nice quote. I can't help it. She didn't actually get to live at 24 Sussex Drive. Now you might be thinking, oh, she wasn't in that long, blah, blah, blah. No, it's because Mulroney refused to leave because there were renovations. She became quite sassy on Twitter for a while. She hoped Hurricane Dorian would directly hit U.S. President Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. She did have to remove it afterwards. I wish she had kept it up.
Yeah.
I was like, come on.
I can understand why she'd have to remove it, though. Like,
I understood why. I'm just like,
yeah.
Let's talk about the fact that she got shady on Twitter.
Yeah,
like
that was super shady. That was awesome.
Oh yeah. 2019, she actually said that she couldn't survive in the current Conservative Party. It's too intolerant. It's too right-wing. That says something. It says something when Joe Clark refuses to stand with you and goes as an independent. It says something when Kim Campbell says this. It says something when Belinda Stronach crosses the floor, which we'll get to. 2024, she believes that there are good people in the Conservative Party, but she could not support the current leader because she believes he is a liar and a hate monger. So again, this is interesting. These were people who were pretty tight and high up in the Progressive Conservative Party. And this should tell you something when they're saying stuff like this. The fact that Mulroney ended up backing Justintrudeau, like, that's a big thing. That is something like I don't think any of us saw coming. That says something about the Conservatives today. So I did want to highlight some of that. There are people who go back and forth on whether or not gender inequality was a contributing factor to her historic loss. Let's face it, she got the heat for what Mulroney did. It definitely didn't help that she was a woman, because there are definitely politicians who have done and said far worse than her who were male and didn't get vilified on the same level. So it is definitely a mix of things that happen. Yeah, so it's all a Canadian humorist, Will Ferguson, perhaps said it best when he said that Campbell should receive, quote, some of the blame for her party's losses, but that taking over the party leadership from Brian Mulroney was a lot like taking over the controls of a 747 just before it plunges into the Rockies. And I feel that summarizes the situation best. So what's in her CV? So she's a diplomat, lawyer, writer, and politician, one of 5 co-hosts and reporters. She was one of 5 co-hosts and reporters on CBC's children's program Junior Television Club in 1957. She attended Prince of Wales Secondary School and was the first female student president. Honors bachelor degree in political science from the University of British Columbia. The first female president of the freshman class. Completed a year of graduate study at that school to qualify for doctoral level studies, and she went to the London School of Economics and got a doctorate in Soviet government, and actually spent 3 months touring the Soviet Union and then left doctorate studies. She was a trustee on the Vancouver School Board. She earned an LLB from the University of British Columbia. She lectured part-time in political science at the University of British Columbia and the Vancouver Community College. She practiced law in Vancouver. She worked in the office of BC Premier Bill Bennett. She was first elected to the British Columbia Legislative Assembly as a member of the British Columbia Social Credit Party. Interesting. So says a lot about how socially right they've gone. She was consigned to the back benches, and she became disenchanted with the Premier's leadership, and broke with him and the Social Credit Party over the issue of abortion, which that Premier opposed. She then went to the House of Commons. She was appointed to Cabinet Minister of State. She was the first woman to serve as Minister of Justice and Attorney General, and that was where she oversaw amendments to the Criminal Code for firearms control, sexual assault, no means no, rape shield law, legislation which is the legislation that protects a person's sexual past from being exploited during trial. Responsible for introducing Bill C-43 to govern abortion, but it did not pass in Senate. There were a few other things that happened in terms of a murder charge against Milgaard, which you can look into. She was the first woman to become Minister of Defense in a NATO member state, and she dealt with the controversial issue of replacing shipborne helicopters for the Navy and for search and rescue units. Minister of Veteran Affairs. Then she was Prime Minister. Following that defeat, she resigned. She was actually named as Woman of the Year by Chatelaine magazine in 1993. In her memoirs, Time and Chance, and in her response to the National Post to the secret Mulroney tapes, she did say that Mulroney left her with almost no time to salvage the Tories' reputation once the bounce from the leadership convention wore off. She claimed that Mulroney knew the Tories would be defeated regardless of who led them into the election, and wanted a scapegoat rather than a true successor. She also described Mulroney as a pragmatist, not an ideologue. She was appointed to General Counsel to Counsel General to Los Angeles for the Chrétien government, and she went on to do a ton of chairing. So, Council of Women World Leaders, International Women's Forum, lecturing at the John F. Kennedy School, director of several public trading companies, chaired a steering committee for world movement democracy, and the list goes on and on and on and on. She is also, interestingly enough, a chairperson for the Supreme Court of Canada Advisory Board. Is there anything you would like to say about Kim Campbell?
I think you've pretty well covered it. The only thing I think I can say about Kim Campbell is it's interesting to me as you look back and see everything that has happened with regards to the Conservative Party. Can we really say that Joe Clark is the last of the true conservatives? Because I'd argue that if Kim Campbell were in office longer, if Mulroney had less of an impact, that Kim may have been able to toe that moderate line for a lot longer.
So we have another what if.
Yeah, we do.
Another what if. All right, on that note, do you know who's next?
Probably the man with the best shade in the business when it comes to Paul Martin. I'm thinking it's the one, the only Jean Chrétien.
Hey, this is Trapdoor Crabsworth for deathpixie. If you liked our content, please like this video and subscribe. And if you want to see more, just check out our links in the description. Do it. Do it or Mary will kill you.